Guys, I really wanted to start off this YouTube video with something I wrote in my journal, which is very relevant to this video. So if you would allow me a vulnerable moment with you, I would really appreciate that. We all know what it's like when we fall back into old patterns, back into the darkness, back to the moments where we're triggered by old traumas and fall back into anxiety and depression spirals. We fall back into people-pleasing spirals. We engage in risky behaviors that we know aren't good for us, such as overspending, promiscuity, reckless driving, going back to old partners and old friends who are not compatible with who we are and where we are in life right now. Greetings! Hey guys! Welcome to my channel. Welcome to my channel. If you're new here, greetings. Hi. If not, thank you guys so much for coming back. For those of you who are new, and I noticed there are quite a few new people, thanks for subscribing and welcome to my bottom of bed. This is where we discuss all things mental health, fitness, all sorts of health, holistic vibes, good vibes. It's what I do. Okay. So, in my How to Heal YouTube video, I will link it in the cards and in the description, I spoke about how life is a series of deaths and rebirths, and that when we are on a healing journey or a self-love journey, we will come done and undone over and over again. It's about learning, but it's also about unlearning over and over again. And I realized that sort of mirrors what Lauryn Hill said about life not being peaks and valleys. I think it was Lauryn Hill. She said that life is not necessarily peaks and valleys, but life is more learning and mastership. Learning and mastership. Furthermore, with each phase of learning and mastership, we achieve emotional transformation. We are able to transform so that we move towards our dharma, our destiny, our dreams, and our goals. I firmly believe that you can't always experience emotional transformation or what it's like to truly heal and be on a journey of learning and mastership while you are still in survival mode. And I want to educate you guys on what it means to be in survival mode, how it stops us from fulfilling our dharma and destiny, and how to get out of survival mode, how to get out of the season of being. All right, let's talk about the signs and symptoms that you can use to identify whether or not you are in survival mode. All right, so the thing about survival mode, especially if you are functioning in your day-to-day life, is that survival mode is a default setting for many of us. Sometimes, for those who are perhaps in a position where they've had a relatively stable life, survival mode is intermittent. So intermittent means it will crop up as a result of a scary situation that has happened in their life, or a recent death, or something like that. It's intermittent, it's situational, and as the person heals or mourns or grows, that goes away. For many people, and I assume many of you are people watching this video, survival mode is the default setting. Survival mode comes from trauma. And obviously I'm speaking in very broad general terms, and many things are specific to each and every one of us. But generally speaking, survival mode comes from trauma. When we are traumatized, our brain goes into a fight or flight or freeze response. This response stops up. It's actually fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. That's something we will talk about on this channel. But this response keeps you at basic survival mode. You are not functioning at the top of your capability when you are in survival mode. You are barely coping to stay alive. That's why it's called survival mode. Now, a few signs or symptoms that you may be in survival mode, and please, if you feel like you are, if If you can, go see somebody. Signs that you are in survival mode include feeling exhausted, tired, no matter how much sleep you get, a general sense of brain fog. You know that feeling where you're just sort of not quite there, it feels like a cloud over you, you can't think clearly? That's brain fog. Feeling numb or engaging in more numbing behaviors to quell the feelings of overwhelm or panic. If you are feeling numb, or the opposite extreme where you need to engage in your numbing behaviors more often. In my self-soothing video, I spoke about what numbing behaviors are. So drinking, smoking, cigarettes, or green. Drinking, smoking, whatever your numbing behaviors are. Could be Netflix and chill, it could be procrastination. If you are engaging in those more often just to soothe, it's a good thing that you know that you need to soothe, but you need to find healthier ways of doing that. The point is, that is a sign that you may be in fight or flight. Symptom is being highly reactive to situations or being overly reactive to small or minor inconveniences, and having enough self-awareness to notice that, okay, my reaction to the current situation is actually not proportionate. That's a good sign, especially when you recognize that you may be in survival mode. Another symptom is catastrophizing, when everything seems like you're taking it to the top, black and white thinking. That is a symptom that you're in survival mode. It's your body trying to figure out I need certainty. I feel very uncertain. I don't know what's happening. And now I need certainty. And therefore it gives you just black and white thoughts, all or nothing. That's how you... Feeling like you need help and being unable to ask for help also may be a sign that you are in survival mode. And for those of you who have previously diagnosed mental illnesses, conditions, when those things are triggered, so if you know your certain things are triggered as a result, so anxiety, depressive episode, etc., that is obviously your body shutting down. So the reason you don't want to continue living in survival mode is purely because you lack emotional sobriety when you are in survival mode. And what I mean by lacking emotional sobriety is that you are unable to think soberly. So your thinking during survival mode is warped. You're not able to make proper, wholesome decisions when you are in survival mode. And sometimes if you don't know you're in survival mode, this is the problem, right? You don't know that you're consistently, for prolonged periods of time, are not making good decisions. As I said, we cannot achieve any kind of emotional transformation, reach our dharma or destiny, when we stay in the state of fight or flight, when we stay in this lack of emotional sobriety. You follow? So the point of getting yourself out of survival mode is to be able to move from a place of security within yourself as a person. When you move from a place of security, you are able to control your emotional responses, despite how the trauma or trigger can inflate what is going on. Remember, your brain doesn't know the difference between a thought and a situation that's already happening. So when you are triggered, you are essentially experiencing the trauma again. You are being re-traumatized, and you need to train your way out of that so that that reaction is no longer your default response. But you need to do it with grace and compassion. And I can say that after a discussion with my therapist, that grace and compassion with myself has truly been lacking over the past few months, which has really hindered my progress. Does that make sense? Step one of how to get out of survival mode is to explore the trigger within you. Explore the trigger that has caused this type of emotional response, the survival mode, the fight or flight state. All right, I'm going to give you some practical examples about this. Let's say You have a very minor argument with your partner. However, this argument has triggered you into an anxiety spiral, black and white thinking, all or nothing mindset. Maybe you're having a panic attack as a result of this. Obviously, at this point, you can recognize, sometimes we can, sometimes we can't, that you are having a disproportionate reaction to this fight. But why? You're having it because maybe it's taking you back to a time when all your parents did was fight. Does that make sense? Exploring the trigger is about asking yourself, what does this take me back to? In that moment, when you are having the reaction after the fight with your partner or spouse, you are experiencing that as a trauma. You are experiencing it like you were when you were a child. However, the wonderful thing about reparenting as ourselves is that we are no longer these helpless children. Does that make sense? And it feels overwhelming to have to reparent yourself, but it's about taking it step by step. Next, maybe you've received a little bit of criticism from your boss, but maybe this triggers an irrational response in you. Maybe you want to quit immediately, which you could. Maybe you want to, freak out. Maybe it's triggered a depressive episode in you. The question is, what is this taking me back to? It might be taking you back to a time where you were an overachiever and there was a lot of pressure on you as a child, and therefore you were never ever allowed to fail or try something new and not be good at it immediately. Tip number 2 on how to get out of survival mode is actually just to do something physical or tactile to get your body back, to get back into your body and out of the fight or flight response. You need to get back into the sensation of being grounded within your body. Doing something physical is not necessarily like something small physical like yoga. You might want to try something more intense. The right endorphins and chemicals and the exercise magic will work to get you essentially out of your head and out of your trauma into a more relaxed state where you can think and get that emotional sobriety that I mentioned earlier. Connect and talk. Now, this for me is the scariest part. Even making a YouTube video alone in my room feels rather scary. I can feel that my palms are sweating up. I can feel that my heart is beating a little faster. All of these little things that show that a panic attack might be coming on. I know that that's from a very deep-rooted fear of vulnerability, which manifests itself as anxiety and hyper-independence in myself, which means I am unlikely to come to you even when the walls are shattering, right? Which then results in internal poisoning, right? And some people are the opposite, where it can result in extreme codependence or ricocheting between extreme hyper-independence and extreme codependence. Do you see how it's about recognizing? But I can only do this because I've had a little bit of help and my own personal initiative. And I have somewhat a support system that, in fact, most of the time when I'm in survival mode, I didn't know. You don't even know that you have this support system. So it's really about being brave when you connect and talk, because you will receive validation once you realize, okay, actually, I am having this response and it's actually okay. I'm a human being. I've gone through something and it's coming out now. And if you have people around you that can support you, and that's what this YouTube video is about, it's about forming a community, then you need to go to them with this information. And remember, I said in the beginning of this video that this is something that's going to take me as well years to work on, right? So let's not pretend it is what it isn't. It's work. You have to work to get better. My last step would be to come up with a reasonable plan. Coming up with a reasonable plan involves the state of, once you get out of this survival mode, it's about maintaining and staying out of survival mode. You might need to leave your job if it is that triggering, even if it is a good job, but if you're not coping, what's the point, right? You might need to take a vacation. You might need to, instead of spending, 1 or 2 or 3, 4,000 rand on your next Shein order, you might want to spend it on seeing someone. Does that make sense? Okay, be good to each other. Okay. Get out of survival mode. If you got to the end, comment your 3 favorite emojis. I'm loving the genie. There's a genie, a blue one and a pink one. Genie, blue butterfly, and other genie. Okay, bye.